Hey, welcome everyone to this week's edition of Tampa Live. I'm your host, Joe Flores. I'm here with Tyler Nguyen, Blue Gray Mortgage, Paolo Matita from Sunrise Insurance, and a special guest, Scarlett Roger with Edge Home Finance. Welcome you guys. These are the professionals from the Tampa Bay area. We're here to provide value to our community, talk about not only real estate, talk about business, talk about families and community. This was a pretty intense month. I think for Tampa Bay and in Florida, everyone knows that we just had our third hurricane of the month. We had Tropical Storm Debby, we had Hurricane Helene, and we just had and made it through. We should celebrate for Hurricane Milton.
Yeah.
Came and wrecked us in Tampa Bay. Our hearts go out to everyone that has been affected. I feel like we just said this last week with Hurricane Helene.
Yeah.
And we're saying it again with Hurricane Milton. But we all made it through. Everybody, most of us have power back on. We have air conditioning back on in our homes, right? Sure. Something to celebrate.
It's actually really nice outside, though. So.
Right?
The temperatures dropped into the 50s.
Yeah.
My
just
gosh.
for 2 days.
Exactly.
Back to being hot again.
Yeah.
And we back to the steaming hot weather. They trick us every year, right? Like it gets cool and we're getting our sweaters out, and then 2 o'clock comes on and it's like 95 degrees. But hey, it's all good. Wintertime for us is like probably January, after Christmas.
I think so.
I'll take the 1 or 2 days though.
Yeah. But Thanksgiving's been cold. Thanksgiving's been pretty cold as of late, so
Looking
it's nice.
forward to it.
Yeah,
Right.
likewise.
Hopefully Christmas Day is gonna be cold, right?
Yeah.
Like, I hate when Christmas is like warm, hot weather. Like
doesn't feel like it. Yeah.
you guys up north, you guys are laughing at us. I know, but don't worry about it. Our beaches are cool, right? We've got palm trees.
Exactly.
But so here to kick it off, kind of want to talk about what's been going on with Hurricane Milton, man. What have we been seeing out there? We definitely got a special guest with Paolo Matita from Sunrise Insurance Group here. He's the man of the hour because everyone's dealing with insurance now.
Oh, for sure.
Contacting FEMA. I mean, what I feel bad about is a lot of people, this might be their first experience.
Oh, yeah.
And
Filing
they
claim.
don't know what to do.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
So let's start it off like that. What happens when hurricane comes and you're a homeowner, and a lot of these people are the first-time home buyers. In the past 2 years, we've serviced so many first-time home buyers.
Sure.
And yes, they pay for homeowners insurance, and they really don't even understand what the heck 98% of that stuff means.
For sure.
On there. So for a first-time home buyer out there, new homeowner, what do they do? Like, what can they do? Does the house have to be totally destroyed and collapsed for them to call their insurance? Or how does that work?
So great question, because I mean, even people that have been homeowners for 10, 20 years, have been fortunate enough to not ever been directly affected, so they never utilized it.
Exactly.
So first things first is, reach out to your agent, make sure you got a copy of your policy, right? So that you can just see the coverages that you have. A lot of people don't realize that there's 2 separate deductibles on your homeowner's insurance. There's hurricane deductible and all other perils. So the hurricane deductible kicks in when there's a named storm. So whether it's Tropical Storm Joe or Hurricane Joe, if that system causes damage, your hurricane deductible applies. So
Hurricane deductible, so it has to be named.
Yes. So once it's named, then that's what triggers that. And typically the hurricane deductible is higher. It's most policies you'll see 2%, and that 2% is what is 2% of your coverage A, the dwelling amount. So if it's a $300,000 coverage, 2% of that $300,000, your hurricane deductible's six grand. So if your damage is less than $6,000, the insurance won't pay out just yet. However, file the claim because it's a calendar year deductible. So for this year is a prime example. If you got hit with Hurricane Helene and then a week and a half later you got hit with Milton, say Helene only caused $3,000 worth of damage, but then Milton caused $10,000 worth of damage, your deductible was met, and then the insurance would kick in for the Milton side of things.
Okay, that's
and it's a calendar year, January 1 to December 31. So even though you may have not sustained damages over your hurricane deductible, go ahead and call your carrier. Most carriers have that 800 number listed on your declarations page. Your policy number, all their systems are very similar. Some of them you can even do it online, but contact the carrier, file the claim. You get assigned claims adjuster that comes out, assesses the damage, and if it's an instance where the damage is less than your deductible, it's at least documented, right? And then God forbid we get one a week or two later, and you get more damage, they're going to say, okay, now you've met your deductible, we're gonna pay out.
So I had a question for you. I'm glad you brought that up because there's always this, I guess, myth or people don't really understand it. But
Sure.
So if we file a claim, and we file, say, multiple claims.
Sure.
As what I've learned in the past or heard in the past, our insurance could go up later on in the future. Is
sure.
that?
Exactly. And I'm glad you brought that up. So when it comes to hurricane or Mother Nature, act of God type related stuff, you don't get penalized.
Awesome.
So
That's good to know.
because it's Mother Nature. There's nothing we could do.
Exactly.
My office, we were joking around like before Milton was coming, we're like, everyone turn your fans on and point it to the west. So we can't do that. That's not real, or dump hundreds of bags of ice in the ocean and cool it down. Like there's nothing we can do about it. So insurance carriers, they understand that.
Gotcha.
So it does not affect you.
There's no penalty, for hurricane or storm, related. Now, water leak inside of your house because lack of maintenance on your water pipes or your water valves. That's a different ballgame.
Okay.
But we'll save that one for another day.
Right.
But no, hurricane related claims do not hurt you.
Gotcha.
In the sense
So,
of
so don't not, because I'm hearing that a lot.
Yeah.
People not wanting to file the claim because they don't want it to affect
Exactly.
If
them.
it's
So that is a
hurricane
very good
related,
point.
100% do it.
Okay.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, that's what it's there for.
Yeah.
Now, if your only damage was, your fence got knocked over and it's a couple $100, the carriers are bogged down with people that lost their whole home.
Right.
So, but obviously if it's anything significant, go ahead and get it documented because again, it's, we live in Florida. It's,
Exactly.
I mean, this is the first storm that's directly hit Tampa in what they say, like over 100 years.
Yeah.
So it's been a while. And that's what I always tell my clients. Like, it's not a matter of if, it's just a matter of when.
Yeah, 100%.
Tampa Bay has been fortunate enough. It's been 100 years.
Yeah.
But anyway, so no, file the claim. Call us.
Does it matter if they file a claim for $100,000 or they might say they want to keep that minimum as possible?
No. So, I mean, whatever, the purpose of insurance is to make you whole, right? I mean, they don't, they can't leave you worse off than you were before the storm happened, and they're not going to pay you out so much to where you're better off. You know what I mean? They're the whole purpose of the agreement, because that's what it is basically. Your policy is a contract between you and that carrier. Like, hey, I'm going to pay you this much money for you to fix up my home. God forbid something happens to these dollar amounts, whatever your policy coverage limits are. So the amount of the claim, is determined by that adjuster. So there's two adjusters. There's the field adjuster, the guy that comes out to the house or woman comes out to the house and says, oh, yeah, okay, the roof is this, that, whatever the case is. Right. It's $100,000 worth of damage. Your policy limit's $300,000. We'll just keep going with that. Like, you've got plenty of coverage. Your deductible $6,000. So basically, depending on the carrier, it's not like you have to necessarily pay out that $6,000. They'll just say it's $100,000 minus your deductible, so minus $6,000, and that's
gotcha. So you don't have to come out of pocket $6,000.
Most of the time, no.
Okay.
Yeah, most of the time they'll just say, okay, hey, coverage is, or the payouts $50,000 or $100,000 minus your deductible, and you'll see that written
So
sometimes.
you don't have to prove that you paid the $6,000.
Exactly.
They'll just deduct it from the payout.
That's good.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's good to
Yeah.
know.
Oh, that's good.
Because a lot of people think like, oh, but I got to fork over
Exactly.
$6,000.
Yeah, it's a big
so
bill.
And that's not always the case. I mean,
Right.
every carrier is a little bit different.
Right.
But yeah, so that's kind of how the deductibles work. And obviously, when something is catastrophic like this, it could take a little while before the carrier actually gets out there or gets you a check.
Gotcha.
So you do end up spending some money up front, but save all your receipts, take lots of pictures and videos of your damages, because then they want to see that. One thing too that they say is, if you've got the damage, go ahead and start the cleanup, but don't start replacing or putting up the new stuff until the adjuster gets out there.
Got it.
Because you can't say, oh, I had this damage, but then you already fixed it before they got there. Then they're going to be like, well, we didn't get to see it damaged. So then that could cause
How long
some
does
issues.
it take for an adjuster to get out there?
I mean, their goal is to get out there within a couple of days,
Okay.
but when the whole state's affected, I mean, they bring in outside adjusters
that was
too.
going to be my question
Yeah.
because I hear that there's private adjusters, or what is that
So
situation?
there
Can
are
we talk
public
about that?
there are public adjusters.
What is a public adjuster?
So public adjuster is not, they don't work for a particular carrier, right?
Okay.
That's just what it sounds like. It's a public adjuster. And in my opinion, my professional opinion, you want to save those people for kind of a last resort. File the claim with your carrier, see what the adjusters that you get say, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you disagree with it, you can push back. You know, most carriers, especially with the new laws that have passed, there's mediation now. You know, back in the day, and what caused the whole craziness with the insurance the last 5 years is they went straight to attorneys or they went straight to public adjusters.
Yeah.
What is a public adjuster? That's the first question.
I mean, I don't know the definition of.
I mean,
I'll
is
be
it
honest
like
with
an
you.
independent
It's
home inspector type of
basically,
thing?
yeah, they're just someone you can hire that are third party,
Okay.
non-biased, so they're not. They're more so in favor of the client than the insurance carrier,
Right.
And that's why I think a lot of people like to go that route. But again, that increases just fees and costs for
Because
everybody.
that is
you
what
know
I'm
I mean?
hearing, and I think people need to be aware of.
Yeah.
They have public adjusters coming to them, and you can assign, and you pay them a certain amount that you get, and
Right.
there's a whole
And they
scam
take
for
and they
people.
take a
So-
piece of your payout too.
So that's why
Yeah.
I was asking.
Yeah.
And
Right.
So most people
last
aren't
resort for
aware
sure.
of what this is, and we need to educate people
Right.
on this.
Actually, we just went through a situation like that. They got on a private adjuster. Really, they went to the insurance company to get them more money. It's like what they were pitching to the client.
Right.
And that adjuster went there and got, which is good for the homeowner because, but they were eating 10% of.
There's a fee. There's gotta be a fee
I would argue,
involved,
like,
right?
did the homeowner actually get more money, or did
Right.
just the carrier pay out more money and
They-
the more went to that
Adjuster.
private adjuster? That's
Right.
why I say, I mean, do what you want to do, obviously, but use that as a last resort. Same thing
Yeah.
with an attorney. I mean, a lot of the carriers, we all went through it. Even the carriers went through it. As we all paid these higher premiums,
Right.
but the carriers went through just nonsense as well.
Yeah.
And I'm an advocate for both.
Yeah.
Like, I know I'm kind of stuck in the middle. I'm not
Exactly.
necessarily only carrier or only client. I represent
But if
both.
people don't know, they don't know.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
go through the carrier first. Talk with your field adjuster. Then you get a desk adjuster. So the field adjuster just collects all the data
Right.
and hand it over to you, the field adjuster or the desk adjuster. Then you're gonna reassess all that and say, okay, here's the dollar amount we're gonna pay you. And Joe says, no, I don't. I think I deserve more. Then you can appeal it. You can mediate. You can go back to the carrier, and they'll say, okay, because they don't want to go to the point of lawsuits again, because
Right.
then that ends up just being more money and all that stuff. So if you go through those steps, including mediation, and you still can't get to an agreement, then do what you got to do.
Yep.
Get the attorney.
When it comes to
get the public
fixing
adjuster involved.
fixing items, do they expect the homeowner to have the money to do the beginning to start the fixing the property, repairing the property, or do they give the money to the homeowner and then the homeowner starts fixing it?
So-
'Cause some people have money; they'll fix it right away.
Sure.
But some people don't have $10,000 to
get
hire
things
a
going.
contractor
For
and
sure.
get things started.
So again, depending on the carrier, right? Some carriers are really good about that, where something is catastrophic like that. Like Tower Hill Insurance is one that I know. They've been in Florida for 50 plus years. They're a solid carrier. They'll get out there and just say, okay, hey, we still need to crunch exact numbers, but here's a check just to get things started.
Oh wow.
Oh, that's
So
awesome.
That is
some
good.
carriers do it, not just Tower Hill. That was just one that came
Yeah.
to top
Yeah.
of mind. I mean, there's 20 plus. So it really depends on your carrier, So that's another thing, and I don't want to go down that rabbit hole, but the cheapest insurance policy is not always the best,
Best.
Right.
because then you might get that. You might save a little bit of money, a couple $100 on your premium, which
Yeah.
sometimes is important. I know when
Right.
you're buying a house or whatever.
Yeah.
But when the stuff hits the fan, you need that carrier to be there for
Yeah.
you. And there's a lot of companies that are out there, like certain concentrated areas that they know got hit hard. They'll send agents out there in the field. They do a lot of drone stuff now,
Right.
and they know, like, oh man, Tyler, we can see from the drone your house
Right.
got rocked.
Right.
Here's
Right.
here's a $5,000-$10,000 check. Get stuff started.
Yeah.
Obviously, we know the claim's going to be bigger,
Right.
but so it depends. It's not a black and white answer,
Yeah.
unfortunately. But there are some carriers that are like, I'm not going to send you money until the adjuster gets out there, which could be 4, 5, 7+ days.
I was going to say weeks.
No. It shouldn't be weeks. It shouldn't be weeks. I mean, their goal is to get out there as fast as possible. But if there's several million people that got affected,
that's not so bad.
No, their goal is to get out there as fast as possible. Right. And not just the public adjusters. When there's this big of an event, every carrier has their core group of adjusters. But if kind of like the linemen that come from all these different states, they'll call in adjusters from different states.
Gotcha.
And they'll just say, hey, we need help getting out to these hundreds of thousands of homes to see what's going on, collect the data, and kind of go from there.
Gotcha.
So step one, I guess, back to the original question, call the carrier, file the claim, just get the ball rolling.
Yeah.
If you've got extensive damage, you can rip out the drywall, or you can, remove the debris and just wait there until that adjuster comes out. Take all your pictures, document all your stuff. Yeah. Once the adjuster comes out to take his own pictures or her own pictures, then you can talk to them about like, hey, what's my next move? Can I go ahead if I'm a person that has the funds? Should I just go ahead and start hiring these contractors?
Does it have to be a licensed contractor? I feel like I'm a professional now.
Yes.
Looking on Facebook, everybody's showing how they're repairing their homes and ripping the drywalls out.
Right.
And I'm like, I can do that, right? Like,
the
Have a side hustle over here?
the demolition part, not so much, because you're just removing the damages, right?
Yeah.
But as far as the repairs and the replacement, you want that licensed person.
Got it. That makes sense.
And so does your carrier.
Right.
So that is the carrier going to require the receipts from and permits?
Oh, depending on what it is. And I saw something online. Pinellas County is like doing like special emergency permit online.
Because they're slow. They're super slow.
They're like, do it yourself.
So, but yes, and that actually brings another great point. So save everything, especially the receipts and permits and repair paid invoices.
What about photos?
Photos, save those too, but save the photos of like the before and the after.
Yes.
And the reason for it is, say 1 or 2 years from now, if you still live in that home and you want to reshop, or you go to refinance when the rates fluctuate, and then your claims history shows up, and even though the hurricane claims don't count against you, it still shows up. So, for example, say you're with Universal Insurance and you had a hurricane claim and they paid it out and everything's hunky-dory and got fixed, but then you want to go and reshop and you're going with Tower Hill. Tower Hill's going to say, hey, we saw you had a Hurricane Milton claim. Tower Hill or whatever carrier just wants to confirm those damages were properly fixed.
That makes sense.
They're not going to assume
they want evidence. They want proof.
A crappy repair, and then you have another incident that then they're responsible to pay out for.
Right.
So
or even just when you go to sell the house, not even refinance
that was going to say the other part.
Yeah.
When you go to sell, that new buyer or that new person that's shopping for insurance, they're going to say, hey, Mr. Seller, Mrs. Seller, I need proof from my insurance before I can buy your house that you fixed that stuff from 2024.
Right.
Yeah.
So they're going to be like, well, I don't have that paperwork. That was
my uncle did
that was 3 years ago, or my uncle did it.
Right.
Then that creates, then there's just more hoops to jump through.
Makes sense.
Depending on how extensive stuff was, because what has happened in the past, someone gets a $50,000 payout. And then they hire their Uncle Joe for $10,000, and they pocket that $40,000, unfortunately.
Right.
Or they walk. I mean, we saw that a
or
lot.
they try and sell the house as is, and it's terrible.
Like sinkholes.
Oh my gosh, that was a big thing years ago.
Yeah.
So document and save it all, even if it's at least for 5 years.
Gotcha.
Because most companies go back at least 5 years on that claim history. Because when you do go to sell or refinance or just reshop your homeowners just because it's a good thing to do every few years, if you don't have that documentation, the new carrier is going to, because underwriting wants to see that.
Yeah.
And if you don't have it, they're going to be like, sorry, denied. We're not going to take you on as a new customer because you don't have legitimate proof that
is a great point
properly fixed all your stuff. You know?
Are homeowners allowed to keep, let's just say they paid out $10,000 and they got somebody to do the job for $8,000.
Sure.
Is the homeowner allowed to?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, and again, it depends. So, like, some carriers will just write a check to the homeowner and say, okay, hey, get it fixed. Just provide us the receipts of everything being done correctly. Or sometimes they'll write a check directly to
the mortgage company, right?
The mortgage company or just the contractor.
So both. Sometimes they'll do it to both.
If there is a mortgage, they'll write the check, and the check is written out to both the mortgage company and the insurer.
Both names on the check.
Yes.
Wow.
A lot of people expect when they're receiving that check, the homeowners
So it's not
always
just going to
think
Joe
they're getting the check
Flores.
right.
Yeah, it's going to Blue Gray Mortgage
Yeah,
and Joe Flores.
yeah.
And, they'll hold the funds until,
They make sure.
or they'll only send half until it gets fixed. And then you get, so
Got it.
they've gotten much better at figuring out how to prevent the fraud that unfortunately the bad apples have done, which
happens.
is what was part of making the industry go crazy. I mean, we all saw it,
we did.
making these prices jump 50, 60, sometimes even 100% in the last couple of years.
Exactly.
So there's no way to bamboozle them anymore. Unfortunately.
So I had a
Or
question for you,
fortunately, I
right?
should say.
So with all these storms that's coming in, I have clients reaching out. They're like, "Oh, Tyler, the water's warmer. I don't know if I, want to invest in Florida anymore." But if you're buying a home and it's not in a flood zone, would you recommend at this point in time to buy flood insurance?
Yes. So, and I love this question
Great
so
point.
much. So we're in the state of Florida.
Right.
Everywhere is a flood zone. It is.
It is true.
So
Not on my MLS sheet.
So I used to be a realtor, back in the day as well, and you hear that a lot. Real estate agents say, or customers say, or even lenders.
Yep.
Guilty parties involved.
Yep.
That's not in a flood zone. That's not true. It's in flood zone X.
Yep.
Exactly.
It is
That's
a flood
true.
zone.
That's
It's
true.
just a very low risk flood zone.
Got it.
But we see it just now after
Yeah.
Plant City, Dover,
Yes.
super far inland.
Yes.
They got flooded
They
out.
did.
Like, not good.
Yeah.
So
Nobody expected that
No,
either.
and if
Yeah.
you're in the X zone, it's much cheaper. There's even private flood carrier options where you can get a flood policy, at least for your building, the structure, less than $1,000, $500-600.
Wow. That's
You know
not
what I
bad.
mean?
Yeah.
Even if you're a renter, you can get just the contents, for your personal stuff, your couches, your clothes, $10,000.
Oh, wow.
Of coverage for like $300-400 a year.
Yeah.
When something like this happens, you're
It's
like,
well worth
that
it.
$300 I spent, I'm gonna get $10,000 to
Yeah.
replace all my stuff. So
100%.
always worth exploring that flood option.
Yeah.
Now I know and flood can be purchased at any time.
So you don't have to do it before closing. You
Yeah.
can do
No,
it after
after,
closing.
exactly.
I was just gonna say, so
Just
when you
like
have that
your debt
client
limit.
that's got the tight funds, or
Yeah.
and they just like, hey, don't spend $1
Yep.
because you're gonna throw off your numbers.
Yeah.
Close.
Yep.
And then talk to your agent or call me, Sunrise Insurance.
Yep.
And we'll quote that flood for you.
Exactly.
There's FEMA flood options. There's private flood options. There's a lot of new markets out there.
Yeah.
So I always recommend.
That's
it.
awesome.
You
That's good.
It's better, and I think now that this has happened, more and more
Yeah.
people are like, yeah, I'm gonna get that flood.
Exactly.
Because I always say, I'm like, why would you spend or borrow hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars and not spend $1,000 more to protect that investment?
100%.
100%.
Yeah.
So yes, always
That's
always
awesome.
get flood.
Yeah.
At least always look at the option.
Yeah.
I mean, our agency, we always like to present that option.
Yep.
And then if they deny it,
Yeah.
we have them sign off that like they refuse to buy it, because
Yeah.
then stuff like this happens and they try and point fingers. It's like, well, no, you didn't want to buy it.
Exactly.
But yes, so everyone's in a flood zone in the state of Florida. Everyone's in a flood zone. So
That is the fact.
it's just which flood zone are you in? High
Yeah.
risk, low risk. For
sure.
So yeah.
No, that's awesome. Well, you mentioned this, all the damages, right? So talking about in our industry, realtors right now, I feel like, again, I'm a big believer, every market has their opportunities, right?
Sure.
So with all these homes being damaged, I'm hearing like you can get houses, a lot cheaper now. Like some people are
sure.
selling as is.
Yeah.
I had a client that an investor, he bought 2 properties this year and he's trying to buy another property. And keep in mind, his house he bought in Hudson on the water and it got flooded, right?
I'm sure.
And he's already looking to buy another one in the same neighborhood for like half the price.
Exactly.
Sure.
So-
because it got flooded out.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
Are they? And that one quick point I want to make.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
The homeowner's insurance that has your hurricane coverage does not cover storm surge.
Right.
Storm surge is separate. That's flood. Flood is rising water from the ground up, including storm surge. So like I even have friends of mine that were like, why do I have hurricane coverage? Storm surge came from the hurricane. That's different.
So if they didn't have flood,
And you got rising water in your home.
Exactly.
Like Davis Island, prime example.
Yes.
I think everybody out there probably, hopefully,
they had flood
Hopefully
insurance.
had floods. But one group of people that always don't think about it are the renters. Even if you're renting, you're not responsible for the structure. But if you want to cover your stuff, your furniture,
100%.
you can get a cheap policy. So it's separate. I just want to make that point. I think you guys know that, but for the masses,
that's a great point.
Flood insurance policy is very different than your homeowners or your renters policy because they don't provide the same coverage.
I get this question, and of course, and I'm sure as a mortgage person.
Yep.
And I did just do that whole forbearance book and blah, blah. But let's say I have a lot of friends in South Tampa, and they can't live in their house anymore. But now they have to go pay. And I'm excited for us to be on this to talk about the 203H, right?
Yes.
But what happens to the existing house that they owe this mortgage to while they're having to rebuild the house? What happens to that mortgage payment? I would love,
that I don't have an answer to.
Right, so they have to be responsible for still having that mortgage payment because what we all want to avoid is 2008 again.
Yeah, 100%.
When no one is paying their mortgages.
Exactly. So and now they have to pay. And we do have a great program for that.
Yep.
But that's where I had started it in COVID. I used to do foreclosure, that was my thing, was foreclosure prevention during that. I was Ticton Law Group's expert witness to fight foreclosures.
Yeah.
So the first thing I'm like, let's know what our forbearance options are. I think us as lenders need to educate because they don't understand. They're going to put a stop. I had someone say it today around a bunch of people. I'm like, no. You need to know your forbearance. It is not, let's not do it for 3 months, and now it's due in 3 months. I called my mortgage company just to find out, just because this is what I do to hear what they say to me.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, no. They'd give me 3 months, and then it was due at the end of 3 months. I'm like, absolutely not.
The total 3 months?
Yes.
Yeah.
So how are these people going to be able to do that?
Yeah.
And that's why I was like, is there any insurance thing that helps pay their payment? I know that other people would want to know that.
If not a FEMA flood policy, but there's some private flood carrier options that have, loss of use coverage for flood. Also, the homeowner's policy, if it, like the hurricane ripped off your roof, and obviously you can't live there.
So
there is loss of use coverage. Just so if your home is damaged by a covered peril, hurricane, for example, and the home is not livable.
Okay.
And you need to go live somewhere else. And usually that loss of use coverage on most policies is 10% of your dwelling amount. So
dwelling amount that you have for the coverage?
Yeah, so coverage A or dwelling coverage. Yeah. Again, we'll use that $300,000.
Yeah.
So most carriers would be 10% of that $300,000.
Still a lot of money
for loss of use or additional living expenses.
Right.
Or if you're an investor, you'll see it written on your declarations page. Fair rental value. If you lose,
so that will help offset. People need to know.
It'll help. Yeah.
Don't just not make your mortgage payment and give up. And walk out.
And that's why I think it's important to really know. And I try and stress this with my clients. I want to make sure you know what you have as far as coverage, but also what you do not have as far as coverage. Because not all policies are built the same.
So not all of them have.
Most homeowners policies will have that loss of use.
So that's
because it's kind of like a standard thing. And most of them offer 10%. Some carriers give you an option to purchase more, 20% or higher.
So it would be $30,000 on a
$300,000.
So that should cover. That should help cover that payment.
Right. And a rental home or wherever you got to live. Now, if it was damage to flood and you just have a FEMA flood policy, I don't believe that there's a loss of use clause in that. Neptune flood is a real popular private flood, and they've got that add-on where you can add on $10,000 or $20,000 of additional living expenses and things like that. So
it's a fine line, right?
Yeah, it's important to just really
pull out the policy now.
connect with your agent. Or call me.
Yep.
I'm not trying to take people away from their agent because there's a lot of great agents out there.
Right.
There's also a lot of not so great agents out there. And that goes for every field, right?
Every field.
Real estate and mortgage brokers.
Yep.
So just connect with your agent and ask for them to break it down for you.
Right.
Because it's good to know.
100%.
That gives you that peace of mind when there's another one coming our way. You're like, all right, I know that if all worst case scenario happens, I've got this avenue to go. I've got that, rather than just scrambling after the fact, which a lot of people are doing.
Yeah, no, you brought a great point. So remember, there's forbearance options, there's loss of use for your insurance options. So those are the things that you can lean on if that happens, right?
Right, and that's what it's there. And if it's hurricane related, it's not going to hurt you.
Yeah.
So loss of use, would they be able to get access to it within 30 days? Because we've got mortgage payments due in a couple of weeks.
It should. If it's, and again, loss of use is not just like an inconvenience thing, right? Like your
if
home,
you cannot. I have lots of friends.
Right. There's a
they
oak
lost
tree in the living room,
and their house was completely flooded,
it's
and they
not
had
safe.
to move out.
Yeah. So if you just lost power, loss of use is not for that. Yeah. But no. So file the claim. Let them know, like, hey, I have this 100-year oak tree that fell through the middle of my house. I can't live there. That usually gets expedited faster. Right. They prioritize due to severity, right? Okay. So, if you're the person that just had, the screen enclosure caved down, which is extremely inconvenient, and there's some damage, versus your neighbor down the street that had the giant oak tree in their living room. I mean, they're probably going to get a little faster of a response.
We have people living in a camper in my backyard right now.
Yeah,
from our church. Like
the backyard's a motel setup right now.
But yeah, so it's yes. Now if it was flood related specifically, then they just need to dig in a little bit more and determine exactly.
So what happened? Okay, so it may have been flood, maybe, but then this hurricane came in, and now they've got massive hurricane damage. How do they know the difference?
So the adjusters they'll come out there and see. Obviously, flood leaves a much different footprint as far as visual or physical evidence than a hurricane. And when they're so close together like this, obviously the adjusters have a tough job,
right,
figuring it out. And I this is maybe my heart of hearts speaking. Like, they should be sensitive to the scenario. Like, okay, yeah, this person just had this flood. Now there's a giant oak tree. Like, we're just gonna say, okay, let's get you squared away. But that's why pictures are so huge, because that's just going to help the adjusters move through the process that much faster. Right. So if you get flood damage, take the videos, take the photos. Here's my documentation. Then Milton comes through, and you have this, so they can separate the two. Help them kind of do their job a little bit more. If all you have is your word, then they got to do a lot more investigating. Right. Versus if you've got the photos and you've got this and that.
And that's the situation that recently happened. The guy had 10 acres down in Parrish. Tropical Storm Debby came. It flooded. They opened the dam. The river's down there. It flooded the house and the community. He called his flood insurance. They came out right away. He called Citizens, the homeowners insurance. They came out right away. The Citizens guy, the homeowners insurance, was like, yeah, you're not going to be covered on this because it was a flood. Oh, wow. And then now we got to call them back 10 days later. It's like, hey, you got to come back because now there's a hurricane and the tree fell on the roof.
Right.
Now. So.
And because he called them first and they had their documentation for when they chopped, they know now what the new damage would be. Yep. So when it comes to Mother Nature related stuff, never be afraid to call and just file the claim.
Yeah.
If it's
Citizens, you better pick up when I call.
Yeah, right.
Well, and again, too, when stuff like this happens and millions of people are impacted. I mean, there's only so many people answering those phones. Citizens, you can start your claim online. So if you're tech savvy enough, I would encourage you to, or whatever your carrier, check and see if you can at least get your claim number started. You usually get assigned an adjuster pretty quick with their name and their contact number. And then that way you can kind of get the ball rolling. Otherwise, just be prepared to potentially sit on that phone for an hour or two. I had a friend the other day. She called FEMA to try and get that whole process started with just some FEMA funds, and she was on hold for 2.5 hours.
Yeah, I can imagine.
But so you put it on speaker, you just set it down and do it.
She had time.
Drink some wine, No.
So just patience, obviously, because
everybody's going through it.
Yeah. So
that's an incredible, great knowledge that's breaking bread with us and for us to share with the community. I mean, out here in Carrollwood, it was just a disaster. The kids just went back to school today. They've been out of school this is summer.
Oh my God!
They get 2 summer vacations this year.
Summer school, man.
Trees down. People haven't had power for 2 weeks and no air conditioning. I know that's a rough one right there. And people are hangry, hot. It's a sense of
gas.
time. No gas right now.
Luckily, all that's behind us.
There's no gas. I mean,
it was a mess
to get us back in action.
On the lending sides, what's I know. Hey, we've had a couple contracts. It was California buyers. They saw this hurricane stuff. They're like, "Hey, we're out of here. Cancel the contract."
Same
I'm
thing.
like, no, we'll pay for your closing costs. But things are happening. Are you guys seeing a lot of deals being affected?
Yeah, I had a similar situation. I ended up losing a buyer. He was an investor from Washington, and he was like, he just had a bad. Situation, nobody was communicating. Property got damaged. Nobody was calling him back. He just didn't feel comfortable. He just canceled it. So, and then we have other buyers. I'm sure Scarlett's run into the same situation where the closings are getting delayed. So we're working with the lender, the appraisal management companies to get the natural disaster reinspection out. And thank God none of the properties really got damaged. There's fences are down or whatnot. So little minor things, but I think the main thing is just everybody needs to be patient, and that's the hardest thing. Sellers need to be patient. I mean, come on, we just went through 2 hurricanes in less than 2 weeks, and I think that's the biggest.
They should be happy.
You tell my landlord to be patient.
I know, right? They should be happy. People still canceling for them.
Exactly.
Real quick on that too, I just want to touch. So, like, if I'm a seller, and I'm under contract, and this just happened, and I now have to file a claim because something significant happened. The new buyer, if they haven't already locked in their insurance, is going to have potentially a hard time locking in a new insurance policy on a property that now has an open claim.
Right.
Which can really potentially screw things up because then it's like, well, the new homeowner's carrier is not going to lock it in until that claim's closed out.
Right. I think we're going to start, I don't know about you. I'm not seeing it right now because all our people were probably locked in before the storm hit, right?
Yes, 100%.
But we will start seeing it in the next couple of deals going under contract.
Hopefully not.
When you say locked in, does that mean binding when they
bind
down?
Yes.
That's why everybody was going crazy to buying their insurance before the storm hit.
Yeah, because once they lock down, So real quick note on that, and I think you do a great job, and if you don't, you probably do. If you should if you don't. 30 days out, most carriers will let them lock in their homeowner's insurance.
And why do they wait until the very last minute? It drives me crazy.
No idea. Because it helps you guys do your jobs much faster, too, because then you got the exact numbers.
We want better rates.
So that is actually a pain point. Right now, the pain point is that all these locks that are coming expired. Right? I mean, I closed a loan in Manatee on Friday before the FEMA hit. Yeah. Imagine that. It was like, girl, I don't care. My processor, she has a disabled child. She's driving in a van, getting everything in because we didn't have the ability to relock because rates have gone up since these locks
100%,
went in.
100%.
Right? So that, I don't know if that's the pain point is the FHAs that locks are coming due. I mean, and so now
they were anticipating for rates to keep going down. So trying to be patient.
You can't relock people now. You've got to extend it.
Yep.
And I have a friend of mine, and it was a refi, and I'm like, I'm like, I'm just going to take one for the team for her, okay? Because if not, she lives in South Tampa. So what do you think is going to happen in the next 6 months? You think the values are going to go up to be able to refi?
Right.
There's so many
moving parts.
Exactly.
You got insurance. You got property reappraisals and all that stuff.
Exactly. So you got to get the appraiser back out there immediately before that rate lock runs out.
Yep. Yeah. Everything's so time sensitive in our industry, and and I think and Scarlett can probably attest to this. As lenders, we have to keep the circle, keep on going. The wheels keep on having to go, and not to say realtors, insurance, we all take a part of it. But again, I think the biggest key in this remaining of the year is just being patient.
Exactly.
100%.
Things will get done.
And
patience and grace.
And gratitude.
Yes. My processing manager, that is her name, and I'm so glad because she makes me, I have to say it all the time. And I'm like, oh, that's
Remind yourself.
Because I had a client that is like, she didn't want to pay the $200 reinspection fee for the FHA. And I'm like, girlfriend, can I talk about what your lock extension is going to look like?
Yeah, exactly.
How much that's going to cost you on the long run?
Yeah. So, but what are you seeing on the real estate side, Joe?
Yeah, buyers not wanting to come to Tampa right now. I mean, it
Everyone's
happens.
rethinking Florida, right?
To be honest, it happens every year when the hurricane buzz because they watch the news. Even if there wasn't a serious hurricane thing going, once it gets hyped up on the news, people are like, hands
Especially
off. We're gonna wait.
News.
Yeah,
It's real crazy with it.
Exactly. So,
I don't know about you guys. I got tons of calls from family, and they're like, "You leaving? You're
Right?
like, no, we're
Out of
staying."
state. Yeah, right.
I'm like, are you crazy? Just staying.
I'm praying for it. And I'm like, leave me alone. I am a responsible human being.
Right.
I can
And you're not helping the anxiety with all those texts.
I felt like a bad parent not leaving.
Exactly,
They're like,
right?
you gotta leave now. I'm like, no,
Well, like
come on, leave.
okay, so we may all be in a flood zone, but we may not all be in an evacuation zone.
Exactly.
And I am not in evacuation
Yes.
I think
zone.
a lot of people don't realize that.
Right?
Yeah, like the first 5 miles from the coast are like the highest risk.
Right.
But if you're further inland, like your wind is going to
I
be.
think we're going to start
is gonna be
seeing
the
that
thing.
in MLS listings, evacuation zone A, B, C.
Yeah, if it's
Yeah.
not already there, it should be.
You know what? I
guess.
was trying to look for that thing for the life of me. I could not find it. I was like, where the hell is this? You know?
Right? I'm like trying to figure. We got 6 kids.
You're getting
and
these text
I'm like,
messages.
I'm like,
Yeah.
going, okay, kids,
Yeah.
you're
Tampa
this is
ones,
where you are. Y'all all need to get
Yeah.
like all of a sudden, that's a thing now.
is.
So
Sure
like
is.
hey, we don't live in one, Joe. I don't know
Joe,
about
we gotta
you.
step on that, man.
Right?
You gotta start disclosing that.
Right? I love that because that means that area is
This is not an evacuation zone.
right. Exactly.
Yes, I'd rather hear you guys say that than not flood zone.
Hey,
Exactly.
learn something new every day.
We should switch that verbiage up.
There you go. I
Rather
like
than
that.
saying this
Yeah.
home is not in a flood zone,
Yeah.
you say this home is not in an evacuation
I like
zone.
that.
Yeah.
I like that.
You heard it first on Tampa Live.
Because everyone's in a flood zone, right?
Yeah.
Oh, we know that now. I did learn something today.
Well, I'm
Thank you.
glad. Yeah,
Thank
no,
you.
that's good. But again, there's so many more intricate things as far as the insurance side of things. So just call your agent. That's my biggest piece of advice. Call your agent. Ask them to hold your hand through it. As me personally, I love when a client's like, walk me through it line by line. I'm like, let's go.
Yeah.
Because then everybody feels better.
Yeah, 100%.
Versus so many people out there just say, what's the lowest price? Okay, give me that.
Yeah.
And then when they're faced with a situation like this, they get all up in arms because they don't have this coverage. Or
Right.
you're telling me I'm only going to get this dollar
But
amount.
they didn't wanna
And it's
pay.
like, hey, remember when you wanted to save $500 and now you're screwed $5,000+? Like, anyway. So, I digress. But yeah, call your agent, go over your coverages. If you were fortunate enough to not sustain damages, you can make policy changes.
Yeah.
Even right now, even
Now's
today.
a good time to make some
100%.
policy
And
changes.
if you want to add coverage or increase coverage or lower deductible or whatever you got to do, or even reshop,
Right.
switch from one carrier to the next.
Right.
Now's the time to do that. So hurricane season's June 1 to November 30, 30, 31?
Oh, don't
30.
say it.
Oh, we still got another month of this? What?
Yeah.
So, that time it can be sometimes challenging to,
Right.
to shop it around, especially if there's storms out there and stuff. But
Yeah.
I always encourage people April, May, June, April, May, right before June.
Yeah.
It's a great time to just go through those details before
Right.
hurricane season starts. Make your changes.
Because you can always change it.
You can always change it. Now,
Yeah.
you can't always change your hurricane deductible unless
Yep.
you reshop and get a whole new policy,
Right.
which, again, you can do at any time.
Yeah.
But coverage-wise, you can increase coverage or buy that flood policy.
Right.
Now, keep in mind, FEMA's got a 30-day waiting period if it's not required by a lender. So if, Joe, you want to buy flood insurance,
You can't buy it today.
You pay for it today,
Right.
but the coverage starts in 30 days
Adam,
with FEMA.
Question about that was, and this was from a couple property owners. They have multiple properties, and sometimes they I guess they lapse or the insurance expired or whatnot, right? But they have a
Okay.
mortgage. So they would call me. They're asking is, does the mortgage company automatically put in a marketplace?
They do
insurance
forced
company?
place insurance,
Forced place.
but that's not for you.
Yeah, it's for it's usually very crap policy, if I may be honest.
It's super expensive.
Horrible
Yes.
policy and super expensive.
Yeah.
30 to 50% more expensive than a standard policy.
Right.
And it really, like she said, just protects the bank, not you, the homeowner. It's bare minimum coverage, probably just to cover the structure, but it's not going to cover your personal property. It's probably not going to have loss of use. I don't know. I've never actually seen the details of a forced placed policy.
Would it automatically happen though? Like, let's say it expired today.
No, usually takes 30 to 60 days
Okay.
for them to even realize.
Yeah.
So they can be without insurance entirely for a good month.
For 2-3 months. And then the bank's going to be like, hey, Joe, we just got this cancellation letter. Show us proof of coverage. And you'll be like, oh, and we can't backdate coverage as agents.
Right.
So is it more expensive? I have a question. If you let your insurance lapse, I know like in car insurance it's that way. Is it more expensive than to get it again because you let it lapse?
If you catch it within 30 days, some carriers up to 45,
okay,
you can get a new policy without paying any penalty fees. But if it's more than 30 days and you like, oh, it's been 2 months since I've had coverage, your options are extremely limited, and you're going to pay more money. You're going to get hit with a lapse of coverage surcharge. But once you reestablish coverage for at least a year, basically, then you can reshop it. And so no, it doesn't. It's not like so. For example, your insurance renewed October 1st, and you missed your payment. Usually they give you about a 10 to 15 day grace period to get it paid. But so say you never paid it. It's canceled as of October 1. The banks may not really figure that out for another month or two.
Yeah.
And then if something happened in the middle of October,
you're screwed.
You got nothing. Because even the force place wouldn't necessarily. I think lenders, because of how it's structured, they have the opportunity to backdate from when somebody defaulted, essentially, because you're in part of the agreement is that they're going to carry insurance.
Exactly.
So a lender can backdate to protect their asset, but it's not going to help the homeowner. So trying to prevent lapses.
And that forced place does not protect the homeowner.
No,
nothing. It's only to cover the mortgage.
Yeah. So if you do have a lapse, pay attention to it, obviously, so that you don't. But catch it within 30 days. Call an insurance broker and get a new policy ASAP.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Great information. Now I feel like I'm an expert. I'm ready to call my clients. I haven't been picking up my phone calls. And
you hiring, Paolo?
All they want to talk about is insurance right now.
Here, a job.
I'm always ready.
Every question coming in right now is about insurance. And listen, I just have FEMA's website, but I did get an email today. It said FEMA ran out of, or maybe it's not FEMA, but they ran out of SBA funds, disaster funds, I believe.
Makes sense.
They ran out of money. It's been only 1 week, man.
That's crazy.
They'll print some more. Don't worry. Bad joke. I'm sorry. That was a bad joke. Wrong room to make that joke.
So,
anyway.
But great topic today. I'm glad you guys came through.
Absolutely.
Scarlett Rogers.
Thanks for having me.
Paolo, Matita, Tyler Nguyen. Tampa Live, we do this every week to kind of share information with everyone in the community. Look forward to seeing a lot more of these guys. Keep everyone up to date with the hot topics going around town. Especially here in Tampa Bay, for sure. So, any last words, Scarlett, Paolo, and anyone?
Well, I would think, obviously, because we both know there is options if you did lose your house.
Yes.
And if we want to touch on that real quick, and you can talk about it, we can volley off each other.
Yeah, for sure.
But that the FHA 203H is an option for renters, right?
Yep.
If you lost everything, it's 100% financing.
It is.
So, but your house that you lived in had to be completely damaged.
Exactly.
You can't this isn't just like a 100% financing for anybody who lives in town, right? You have.
I was going to say, how do I apply this?
Yeah.
You have to have lived in a house that was completely destroyed. What do we do?
Yeah.
Well, you don't want to be at anyone else's mercy anymore.
Yep.
You might want to be able to do this.
Exactly.
Or what is your thought, and what would your process look like for people who this is their home and they're homeowners getting that? So I want to do this together.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up the FHA 203H. Another thing is, like, we're talking about mortgage payments, right?
Yes.
The clients, their houses were damaged, but the FHA 203H will help pay some of the mortgage payments as well. So that a lot of people don't know about that. And I would say, think about it. If your house is completely damaged and you're trying to get, and your insurance didn't cover, you didn't have flood coverage. You really can't do a home equity line. You can't do a refinance cash out. The only way you're going to be able to do it is to do a renovation refinance at that point. Because you can get builder's risk policy that covers for the short period of time you're getting the house rebuilt. But there's Scarlett hit right on the money. The renovation loan is going to be a big thing this coming year, this remaining of this year, and probably next year too. So
and I'm going to toot our own horns because we are both brokers.
Yes,
right?
it is.
And the great thing about both of us being brokers, I don't know if you were ever in the lender world. I came from the lender world, and I would never have the options that we have now as far as multiple lenders that are doing that program that we can help them with.
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, there's VA. We have a VA renovation loan, FHA, conventional. So again, it's going to be we're able to accommodate all consumers at this point. So
we have options.
Yeah, we have options for sure.
Is there the 203H, 203 Hurricane, or is it just 203H?
What's that H stand for? Yeah.
Don't ask.
Helene? I don't know.
It's hurricane now for us.
Exactly. 203 Hurricane.
But is that like a 580? Like, so someone owns a home and their house gets destroyed, but let's say they didn't have
that's
a
a
strong
great question.
credit.
580 is, I heard yesterday in one of the classes that they just did, one of the lenders, they say that 550, let's just say 580, right? If you lost your income docs, let's just say you lost everything, they will take supplemental different types of, which is kind of cool. Typically the underwriters are so picky. In this type of loan, they are a little bit more lenient with that, which is helpful, right? But if you, like, say you had great credit until this event happened, and you can show that you had great credit until this event happened, then they will overlook some of the things that have happened since this.
Yeah, 100%.
If you want to speak a little bit more on that.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that right now that program is going to be a great program, and I would say it might be good to know some contractors, general contractors at this point in time that were willing to accept, the project. And I think that's going to be, everybody's going to get a little bit more busier, especially in the housing industry. So it's unfortunately, it's a sad situation, but I mean, it's going to keep us busy for sure.
You got a chainsaw, you're going to make money in Tampa Bay right now. I'm telling you right now.
Contractors, and the other thing for the renters, because this is the thing, if you're a renter and your landlord had the insurance, one of the things that they need is the insurance inspection. So
they do.
I did see that they are taking home inspections, right? So I saw a couple of different, in this pitch I was in, that there are some home inspection companies that are doing this. So it doesn't take away from you, but for the renter who can't get the homeowner's insurance inspection, that there are some things that you can do. So that made me
I
feel
saw
better.
that. Actually, I'm glad you brought that up. Like, I think a couple of days ago, one of my realtor partners, she actually sent me a home inspection for natural disaster. I was like, I can't use this, but it's good to know it's peace of mind for the buyer to know, hey, their house.
For our renters.
Even the renters.
Because they don't have access to their landlord's insurance policy and inspection. That is something good to know as well.
100%. So
all these gems being dropped on the Tampa Live podcast. Man, I love this.
That's what happens when you have brilliant minds in one room.
Exactly. Good stuff. And then an extra one like me.
And good for you for always being that person that pulls people together. You're a connector.
That's what it's about. We always collaboration over the competition. We've always said that from day one, and so that's what we're here for. We look forward to a lot more future episodes. You guys stay tuned on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube definitely, and you'll see a lot more episodes dropping. Look out for a lot more classes and courses and stuff and trainings that are happening for all different industries out
Paolo
here.
has a class, right?
Oh yeah, I was gonna say, I'm gonna do a little shameless plug, but Wednesday, October 30th, here at the Carrollwood LPT Hub, doing a lunch and learn about homeowners insurance. We'll go to a full hour deep dive, a lot about what was touched on today. But
that's a great thing.
There'll be a link
Realtors need to
sent
get
out
here.
so you guys can register. I think it's gonna be only limited to like 25, 30 seats.
Yep, 25, 30
but if
seats.
we get it big enough, maybe
we'll have it on Zoom with
I was
the
going to say, can you
Eventbrite.
open it up to Zoom so that way people...
I'll be doing that on the 30th here from 12 to 1, and again, LPT Carrollwood Hub. But file your claims, people. Call your insurance agent, and don't be afraid.
Yep.
When it's hurricane related. If it's something else, call your agent first. talk to them, see what it is, because think about your deductibles. If it's not hurricane related and the damage is less than your deductible, probably don't want to go the claim route. But hurricane wise, file those claims. That's my words of wisdom for the day.
Awesome.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Thank you so much.
You guys stay tuned. Tampa Live Podcast. See you next week.